Now, I'm very lucky to be joined by immigration attorney, Mr. Satvir Chaudhary. He's based in Minnesota, USA, and hopefully he can tell us more about what these refugees have got lined up for them. Satvir, thanks for joining me here on Anews. It's been a while. It's good to see you. Sadly, these are tough times that we're experiencing in Ukraine right now. I wanted to get you on really just to talk more about these. We have close to 2 million, actually, according to the UN. Close to 2 million people now have left Ukraine. What sort of struggles are these people going to face legally? I mean, forget the hardship, forget the fact that they've left their homes and they've only got maybe a suitcase or a blanket or something very small. But with your experience, I know you've got great experience in this. I mean, what sort of will they face legal challenges up ahead?
Good to see you again, Murad. Yes, I agree. I wish it were under better circumstances. But if you wouldn't mind just indulging me to put a human face on what's happening, imagine you're sitting at home and not you, but your wife, your mother, then need to put whatever they can in a backpack and leave to where you don't know. And they are leaving in the cold with you behind. And by the way, there's a metaphorical bear running after them, and in this case, shooting after them. Must be one of the most terrifying experiences these people are experiencing. It is what is commonly experienced by refugees, but we see this up close most recently in Ukraine. And I just wanted to say that the hearts of people, of myself in America and elsewhere around the world, are going out to them, because this has got to be the worst thing they've ever experienced.
Indeed, and
legally,
you just made a very good point there, and I just want to clarify. It is actually the women and children that are leaving. The men, aged I think 18 to 60, are asked to stay or are expected to stay and fight. Right? I mean that's the point I think you were trying to put across as well.
Yes, when we go to the legal issues, one of the stark legal issues in Ukraine is that they have a law requiring the men 17 to 60 to stay back in case they are conscripted into the armed forces. So we see the vast majority of refugees from Ukraine are women and children.
Right, indeed.
I think of my teenage son, who is just about to turn 18, and if he was in that same situation, being required to stay back with me while we say goodbye to his mother and our mothers and his grandparents, it really puts a terrifying human face on what's going on.
It really does. It really does. Now, we've seen lots of borders piling up. Of course, Poland, Romania, these are the countries that are taking these refugees or Ukrainians. I don't like to call refugee seems to be, I don't know, a word that's that's used in a non-human way almost. It's quite I mean, people are fleeing war basically, and this is, and persecution immediate. But are the neighboring countries, I mean, do they give them any form of legal status when they go over, or are they just, I mean, we've seen images of some people just shoved into a stadium with a sleeping blanket. I mean, is there no human rights issues being put into, I don't know, made difficult for these people?
Yeah. There is a complex patchwork of legalities that are involved in refugees. We use the term refugee in a general term as people fleeing war. Then each individual person, as they as they flee, as they cross a particular border, it depends on what that border is, then they are entitled to or not entitled to a particular type of legal status. Just like if I were to go to any other country on vacation, there has to be some sort of legal status. And that is different depending on which country a person is fleeing from and what country they're fleeing to. We saw this in Afghanistan, where it was very difficult, where there was a rash of people being granted entry into the U.S., but they were having a very difficult time getting out of Afghanistan. Now here we have a situation which is different, where people have a path somewhat, because a lot of them these women and children are being shot at, to be able to get into neighboring countries. And many of them, and the vast majority of them, because they're members of the European Union as Ukrainians, can easily get in, at least temporarily. And then as of February 24th, the folks from Ukraine were granted status to be able to work and receive some benefits in the neighboring countries. So there was a framework created to accommodate people for at least the legal status. Of course, there are all sorts of the logistical problems that go forth with being a refugee, and we don't want to take away from that for one moment. That's just a part of it. Then there is the United Nations framework of refugee status, where the UN High Commission on Refugees can help process people to different countries if they don't happen to stay in the country they are in. And then we have each individual country dealing with Ukrainians who are already there. For example, the United States quickly allowed temporary protected status to any Ukrainian who was here temporarily, allowing them to stay here for at least another 18 months. So as you can see, it depends on where you're coming from and where you're going to, and what law then applies. And this then brought into play some accusations of discrimination from people who were in Ukraine but not Ukrainian citizens, did not have Ukrainian passports or any European passport for that matter. And those people were not allowed in as easily. And there was a legality problem with that, which didn't necessarily have to do with racism on its face, but when you compare that to other refugee situations, such as those people coming from Syria, well, was the European Union so quick to act for those individuals? There were cries, we don't want terrorists in our country, et cetera. Those types of accusations do not exist with Ukrainians. On the other hand, Ukraine being in Europe, there's a little bit more comfort level, regardless of race, of having a neighboring refugees come to them. So it is complex. We cannot discount structural and institutional bias. But at the same time, we also have to recognize the complex legal framework that always comes with wartime and refugee statuses.
Indeed. An interesting I appreciate you explaining it to us, we really do. But let's say a Ukrainian family or a group of Ukrainians leave and go to Poland. Can they say that they want to go to England or France or Germany? Or is there like a holding pattern? I hate that's a horrible thing to say, but are they stationed in Poland for a while until paperwork is got? I mean, because a lot of these European countries, a lot of England has said, look, we'll take 200,000. Germany has said, we'll take 50,000. I mean, it's horrible that these numbers are used. It's like they're buying bread or bottles of milk. But is that how it works? Do people sort of get to choose where they go, or is it where they're shoved? Is there likely to be families broken up Could that happen?
I think some of the particulars of that are better answered by someone at the UN High Commission on Refugees, because they are they have the intricate experience of where people are assigned and in when and what processes. I don't believe that there is I think there is an emphasis on keeping families together. I don't know if there is much choice involved, but someone from there would be a better answer. Maybe there is taking into account whether they have friends or family in that particular country. But yes, there's an initial, but the upshot is there is this initial stage of, okay, we're going to come here, and some are allowed to seek asylum under certain processes, some are not, or have to use a different process depending on if they have a Ukrainian passport or not. And then for perhaps even longer term, then they have to enter a different chute, so to speak. So yes, it is a harrowing time. And what does one do during all this time for one's food, medicine, physical safety, warmth, all of that? This is the harrowing times that war creates.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. When we look at, I mean, are there any? Is there is there a human rights or is there a body that, like you said, this United Nations? Is it them who are in charge of making sure that people are at least fed and sheltered and have warm clothes? Is it them that does this?
It's a patchwork of non-governmental organizations combined with the United Nations, combined with other countries that may choose to provide aid. Even certain militaries come in with aid. It is a coordinated effort, and as you can imagine, with so many countries and so many individuals, that it's a logistical nightmare.
You're right. Sadly, we've run out of time. I really appreciate you joining me. I know it's really early in the morning there, and I really appreciate you taking the time to get up early and have a chat with us. Let's hope that this situation, I hope the war ends, basically, and people can go home at the end of the day. That's the ideal situation. But to go home to what? Bombed houses is not an option either. Satvir Chaudhry, thank you so much for joining me here on Anews, sir. We'll speak again soon, hopefully maybe on better notes. I don't know, it's tough with you. Okay, thank you so much.
Good to visit with you, Murad.
All right, that was Satvir.